welcome back to Dead Knitter Society Knitting and Grieving podcast. My name is Mira, and this is my little corner of the internet where fiber arts and grief intersect. So it is episode 12. I actually recorded this like earlier in the week, and the lighting was so god-awful that I was like, I cannot even. So much going on in my knitting life. I am just right now binding off on a swatch. I know, I'm binding off on a swatch, guys. I did a swatch for a test knit cardigan designed by Leslie of Knit Graffiti, and it is called the Pixie Cardigan. It is 2-color honeycomb brioche, which is this delicious and delightful stitch pattern here, and then 2-color garter stitch. And I have not, at least to my knowledge, knit this honeycomb stitch. So I was like, I really should check gauge on this before I make a whole cardigan. So I cast this on Monday night, I think. I am knitting it in Toil and Trouble Sonnet, which is their 100% merino fingering weight base. And my 2 colors are Call of the Raven. This is my contrast color, and Persephone, my main color. I'm going to just do an immediate plug that, first plug is for me. Subscribe, like, etc. Second plug, Toil and Trouble Yarns is the sister dye studio of Circle of Stitches in Salem, Massachusetts. They, at the turn of the new year, moved spaces. Their retail store moved, and within a few weeks of that move, their retail space flooded because of a burst pipe in an empty apartment above them. They have no return ETA yet because there was extensive damage. And currently the entire shop is moved into the dye studio. You can order online and pick up if you're local. You can order online, they will ship to you. But I just think it's so important to support our local yarn stores. And I know we can have a whole conversation about Joanne Fabric closing, but I personally know the owner of Circle of Stitches. I consider her a friend. She's a phenomenally talented designer and an important human being, and also an important member of our local fiber arts community. So if you feel so moved, support them. You can order their yarn, order from their shop. I got a couple of other different little fun things. Like they had these really beautiful tins. And yes, I know that I can use, like, I also use my reusable silicone straw tins for notions. But like I picked up more stitch markers. You can never have too many. These are cute little like pine cone ones. So even if you don't need yarn, if you're doing like a stash down, whatnot, there are notions, there are needles. Buy a gift card. Support our small businesses. Anyway, back to another small business, Knit Graffiti Designs. So test knitting this, I'm just binding it off. This was actually, it probably took me until about here. And then I was really able to memorize the pattern because it's brioche knitting, but it's almost like syncopated, where rather than just knitting the little shawls that you get, you separate the shawls and the stitches that they go with. And it gives you this really cool, like, look at how beautiful that is. And you can't really see, but it's very much 2D. And then the back of it is just little purl bumps. It has the same squish of brioche, but not the ribbing effect that you get. So I'm very excited about this. I'm going to bind it off. I measured my unblocked gauge and put it in this project page. And then I'm going to wash it, block it, and then remeasure. I think I showed you this last episode, but I'm also working on my silk graffiti shawl still. And I actually put the labels of the yarn in here. Do I have that one with me? Where is she? She's here. Isn't that fun? You get to look at me staring around my space wonderingly. So I'm actually making fairly decent progress on this Bad Larry. I'm very almost done with section 2. So each section has solid section, a 2-color brioche lace, a striped stockinette section, and then another one of the brioche lace. So almost done with this. I think I only have 4 or 5 rows, and then I will switch up the color scheme again. I think I really love this. I think it's beautiful. I love the kind of demure color contrast. It's demure and mindful. It's, you know, it was designed with a higher contrast in mind, but I'm really digging this combo. So we love that. And I'm still plugging away at my Mabel. Mabel has become like my travel project because I don't need to think about shaping and I can just follow the 4-row repeat. So like I was at my son's ski banquet last night and got a couple rounds done. But you can see I'm very slowly making progress on the body of this. And I actually got to the point in Only Murders in the Building where Mabel is wearing this sweater. Season 4, she wears the inspiration for this sweater design. This is a Joji Locatelli, my Mabel sweater. I'm still lusting after another ranunculus. I also mentioned last episode, throwing everything everywhere. Mentioned last episode about my opposite pole cardigan. And let me grab her here. There's like a lot of fabric. So this is my opposite pole cardigan. So I always tell this is the right sleeve because this was its own skein, which is slightly darker than the rest. I probably should have striped it in, but now I can tell. It has this big circular like shawl collar, and the construction is so fascinating because you end up, I knit this in like 2015, and really like there's a little bit of pilling. This is Madeline Tosh worsted or Madeline Tosh vintage, their worsted weight, just superwash merino. You do just a knit flat panel and then you're picking up stitches. This cable here is like a flat cable, but then these are garter row, short row wedges, and this is reversible cable because it's done in ribbing. Like the design of this is freaking brilliant. I love Joji's patterns. She's one of my favorite designers. Her designs are well written, they're easy to follow, and they produce very wearable garments. And I mean, I've been wearing this for 10 years and I love it and I pull it out frequently. So we love that. Not sure I grabbed a mama one. I had a new, so being in school, term A finished, term B started, and I'm having surgery in the middle of term B. So my stress level about trying to get my work done, it's high. It's very high. Let me pull out a mama garment out of this big old bag of beautiful things that my mother made. Sorry for the sounds. Sorry for the sounds. Oh, this is one that she put in the Topsfield Fair. Okay. I'm going to cover her old phone number, but here's my mother's handwriting. So sweet little baby cardigan that Mom, I believe this won at least an honorable mention and possibly more at the Topsfield Fair. Mom put in her quilts, knitted garments. She was always in the ribbons. This feels silkier than a lot of her other garments. But there's this, I don't even know how to describe that texture, and this will require some figuring out. But adorable, beautiful, and again, no pattern, sweet little buttons, and then this, I don't know how she did, I literally don't know how she did this. It almost looks like these are like garter bump texture. with this little lace cabling in there. It's so amazing. Her work was just so beautiful. So beautiful. So this is something that Mama made. So let's see, acquisitions. Beyond, so I had done an online order for Circle of Stitches, and it's in the other room. Hold on. Okay, thank you. All right, so I was picking up my online order. They had this on sale, Wool Dreamers. This is Spanish wool. And I feel like once it gets some wool wash, it's going to be like soft and beautiful. I think that I'm going to make an herb saint with this. It is a t-shirt pattern that has horizontal cabling, which the pattern photos look very cool. And I think that this will be like just a really nice, quicker to knit up kind of a t-shirt. So I picked that up. And while I was there, I knew that I was going to be knitting this cardigan because I need cardigans for work. This is the Call of the Raven before it's spun up. Like the depth of the color in this is so beautiful, and it's squishy. It's soft, it's amazing. So I did a little impulsive yarn purchase, and I have no regrets. None. Because I'm knitting it. I'm knitting it right now. I didn't buy yarn that is then languishing like this. Who knows when this will get knit up. I should probably start tracking the yarn that I purchase and then when I actually get to knitting it. That would be an interesting thing to track. Speaking of tracking. So in my knitting journal, I did, so for February, I wore things that I have knit 18 out of the past 28 days of February. And I didn't start tracking really until the 5th, so that could be a little inaccurate, but that's 64% of the time. Now, considering that I live in New England, I could probably make this higher, but I honestly need more things that fit my current body. I wore my opposite pole twice. I wore my Sizzle Pop twice, Sweet Cables once, the Grief Sweater once. Ooh, one of these days I'll have to show you the Grief Sweater. My ranunculus got worn twice in the first week that it was finished because I love it so much. My Rebel 2 shawl, that's this one. This one gets a lot of wear because it matches a lot of my work outfits. And it's nice to have to just throw over my shoulders in the office. So that one got 3 wears. And then I kind of wore my other shawls or cowls like once or twice in the month. I do have a pair of socks. I need to mend one heel and do more than just the Stephanie Pearl McPhee hold it over the garbage can and say, oh darn, darning method. I need to actually like darn the heel of that because that would be a really easy way to include knitwear into my daily wearing. And then we have March started up here. Today I chose not to wear a hand knit because for my job I do home visits, and when I know that I'm going into a smoker's home, I actually try not to wear the hand knits because I just find that I come home kind of, it's harder to wash those, right? But even so, half of the days of this month I've worn something knitted, and I have just my little goals like I'm doing this episode right now. So I'm really I'm enjoying having, even if I don't get to everything, I keep carrying it down to the next week, and it just keeps me reminded of like what I want to be working on. And I'm trying to cycle through the 3 projects that I'm very actively working on right now. I can't make myself work on the simple thing. Maybe it's just too simple, and maybe I need to do something that has a little bit more interest. It's a beautiful pattern. I don't want to bag on the pattern. It's a free pattern. I mean, we can talk about the whole thing about people stealing free patterns. Don't do that. I find it kind of not cool. If you want to knit something and you think it ought to be free, find something that is free. Don't just break copyright law. It's my honest opinion. I mean, I know that social media relationships are parasocial, but I have been a patron now for a year of Leslie's. She puts so much time and effort into her patterns, and the idea that somebody isn't willing to pay $6 or $7 for a pattern that she has put countless hours into, it would feel like just walking into my friend's shop and grabbing something off the wall and saying, I think this should be free. That's not how that works. So don't do that. Let's talk about Joann. So Joann Fabric is going out of business. I started knitting on I started my adult knitting career on Joann Fabrics. I did try to knit a sweater once when I was in high school, and I didn't know that there's the metric needle sizes and US needle sizes. And I also what gauge? So it was like a nightgown when it was supposed to be a sweater, and I gave up. But we bought that yarn at a local yarn store in the town that I grew up, which unfortunately is now closed. And so then as an adult who was expecting a baby and needed to quit smoking real quick, I went to my local Joann's and I got Lion brand homespun and a kit to make a blanket. And every time I wanted a cigarette that first weekend, I knit more. And there are holes in it. We still have that blanket. It's ugly as sin. There are holes in it where I screwed up, but I made a blanket, and that blanket probably cost me maybe $30. And that was accessible. And there is part of me that's like, big box stores are kind of a gateway. And for some people, they are how fiber arts is accessible. And particularly modern acrylic is so different than like my grandmother's acrylic. To gatekeep, like, don't get me wrong. You've seen the yarn that I knit with. I love a good hand dye. It is not economically feasible for everyone. I will also say that my local yarn stores do a great job of putting budget-friendly yarns in their collections. I know that Circle of Stitches, runs sales, and also they carry Plymouth, like Plymouth Encore. You can knit a beautiful sweater with high quality yarn that holds up over time for like at least half the price of some of the like it girl yarns and still support a local business. So I do have mixed feelings about Joann's closing. I also have mixed feelings because my mom and I went in there a lot. And that, every time that something closes that is remotely connected to my mother, I miss her a little bit more. It feels like she gets a little bit farther away. So yeah, her birthday is coming up next week. I took the day off. And I feel really fortunate that my employer, we have such generous PTO, but also I'm going to be out for a couple weeks, and there was absolutely no problem whatsoever with being out for medical and then also taking like a personal vacation day, no question whatsoever. So I'm grateful for that. I'm going to be working on this so you can see Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. I haven't done this one, so, but yeah, my oldest child and I are going to go to the Museum of Fine Arts because Mom loved that museum, being an artist. And then we're going to go into the North End of Boston because when I was a little girl, Mom used to bring us there and would listen to the little nonninas sitting on their stoops in their chairs. And then we would go to, a cafe and get a cappuccino. So Bella and I are going to like sit in a cafe in the North End and sit and knit and remember Mom on what would be her 82nd birthday. And yeah, I'm glad I'm taking the day off. I have very specific feelings. about this birthday of hers. And just, I don't know. Grief is so weird. Like, I haven't actually cried in a few days, which is sort of it's been a really long time that I haven't cried, like, that there's been a break in the crying, I guess. But even on Monday, I was just having a day where I was like, I don't understand that she died. Like, I don't understand. I watched her die and I don't understand it. Grief is so strange. It's a little bit, like, I don't really understand how the loops become fabric. Like, knitting is alchemy. And I feel a little bit like our lives are like that. There's like such a mystery, and we weren't, and now we are, and then we're not anymore. And I don't know, maybe it's like my own impending, like, this kind of big surgery that feels a little scary, very scary, fucking terrified, scary. But like, I definitely have been thinking on, consciousness and what it means to be in the world. And, oh, by the way, the horrors, like, yeah, it's a weird time to be alive. But I also feel like that's kind of a common human experience. That does every generation feel this way? I think maybe they do. But I also think that, like, we're not overreacting right now if we think that weird things are happening, because they're weird, and not normal and not okay. So, I actually don't mind this. So this bind off, it's pretty darn stretchy. This is, going to be a cuff bind off eventually. So I don't know how to like flip it around because you're looking at the back of my work, but basically you're putting a yarn over into it. And then instead of like in like an Icelandic bind off, I think you put both of these over at once, and you're actually, I don't like these needles. These are not my preferred size 4s, but my other size 4s are in use with my silk graffiti shawl. I need to go to Circle of Stitches and get more. So you pull them over one at a time. I don't know why that makes it extra stretchy, but it seems to. So it's cool. Anyway, yeah, so we knit and chat. Dreading Mom's birthday. I'll probably post something before then. And eventually, probably while I'm recovering, I'm going to try to use the Advent yarn that Bella got me to start swatching Mom's designs, which I think should be cool. So I think that's what I have for you this episode. We looked at what I'm working on. We looked at one of my favorite sweaters. We looked at a beautiful garment that my mom knit. Talked a little bit about, I don't know, if you've lost someone, how do you mark? Like, I'm not yet at a year. A year will be in June. But how do you mark the first birthday? Like, we did, we made things that she would cook for the holidays, but the birthday feels different. So if you feel so called to share maybe how you marked a first birthday with a loved one gone, feel free to share them in the comments. And subscribe, like, I'm supposed to say that again. And then I will be back with another episode, and possibly like a whole nother, I don't know, I think the Finish It or Not series probably deserves to be in its own playlist, perhaps, but I haven't gotten that far because now I have homework again. So we'll see. But as always, I'm so grateful that you tune in and that you listen, and I am wishing you peace, and I'm wishing you love, and I will talk to you next time.